Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin and my thoughts on the upcoming Death Cross. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Now, you guys generally know my thoughts on the Golden Crosses and the Death Crosses. They are, by definition, lagging indicators. Why? Because they are reliant on moving averages. And moving averages, as we know, are very much lagging indicators. So the reason I'm talking about it in this video, though, is because a lot of people have asked me, hey, we have a death cross coming up. What do you think? Therefore, I wanted to provide my opinion on it. So one of the things that we mentioned during the last Golden Cross video and the Death Cross video before that one was that when you get long accumulation phases, and in this case more or less between 30 and 60K, and if you have this sort of volatility that takes us from the bottom of the range to the top, to the bottom, to the top, now we're not at the bottom. We could go there, of course, but when you get this sort of volatility up and down, you're just going to have crosses of these moving averages. And it's not any more complicated than that. And actually, a lot of times when you get a death cross, not always, but a lot of times you actually get a pump into it. If you were to ask me, what do you think is going to happen here in the next couple of days with a death cross, I would actually think it's more likely that Bitcoin goes up than goes down. If you go back to 2019, we saw that actually happen on more than one occasion. There was, in fact, a death cross right here, and you can see that Bitcoin started pumping going into it, and it continued to pump out of it, and it led into a golden cross, and then the parabolic rally began. There was also another death cross right here, and you can see we had a parabolic, well, maybe not parabolic, but we had a fairly nice rally on those couple of days. So the idea that a death cross has to mean more downside is actually not true, but it doesn't mean it can't happen. If you actually look at what happened in the summer when we had the death cross, we did go down a little bit more, but the price we went to was actually no lower than the price we had already more or less wicked to before we even had the golden cross. So the point is to say that while I know there's a lot of sensationalism that comes with golden crosses and death crosses, they are just lagging indicators that tell you what you already know. The reason you already know it is because in order to have a golden cross, the price has to start pumping so that that shorter term moving average gets above the longer term moving average, in this case, the 50-day SMA and the 200-day SMA. If you're going to have a death cross, then the 50-day has to go below the 200-day, and in order for that to happen, the short-term price action has to start performing poorly with respect to the last 200 days. So you don't need a death cross to tell you Bitcoin's down 40%. You can just look at the chart and say, oh yeah, Bitcoin's down 40%. When you have these moves to the downside and they take a long period of time, you're going to have these crosses. Furthermore, I would argue that in accumulation phases, like we've seen before, you don't have to have a long drawn out bear market when you have golden crosses and death crosses. It could just be that you have them because there's natural volatility, right? Natural volatility of Bitcoin will give you those golden crosses and death crosses. Now, one argument could be that all bear markets, of course, had a death cross at some point, right? So like if you go back to this cycle, we had a parabolic phase, and then we came back down, had a death cross, and that was all she wrote for over a year before we started to really have some sustained upside moves in 2019. But you have to remember too, this was actually coming off a parabolic rally. Crypto was a lot more immature back then as well. Today, we're not really coming off a parabolic rally as much. Now, I will say this was certainly a parabolic rally, but we've also come down for a while. We spent some time reaccumulating down here, then we went up, and then now we're coming back down. I don't necessarily, I mean, I'm not saying we have to go back down below 40K. I personally hope 40K holds, but I also am not going to claim that it has to either. But what I would say is that in this type of scenario, to assume that a death cross has to mean immediately lower prices is probably not the safest bet. Okay, if I had to guess, I would actually, again, as I said before, I would lean towards thinking we'll go up in the short term rather than down. But again, that is just my own ignorant, dubious speculation that could easily turn out wrong. So to sum it up, our death crosses and golden crosses, how important are they? They're not really that important. They are lagging indicators that tell you what you already know. In order to have a death cross, short-term price action has to be bad compared to the 200 days before it. We know that's the case, as the last 50 days have been pretty miserable for Bitcoin. So it tells you what you already know. Furthermore, when you're in a long accumulation phase, which is what I would argue the 30 to 60K range is, you're just going to naturally have golden crosses and death crosses. And eventually, I imagine we'll get to a golden cross that actually leads us into another rally. But until then, we'll continue this volatility to the upside, to the downside, to the upside. And we'll see if we turn around here or not. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. We also did a premium list at intothecryptoverse.com. I'll see you next time. Bye.